believe that temptation can plant anything in our hearts, but it can encourage what is already hidden in there. Right? There are things that you know don't bother you, and if someone walked up to you and offered them, you'd say no, and it wouldn't mean anything at all. But then there are things that you know you're fighting with and fighting against, and if someone came up and offered them, you know that it would be a battle. So that means the temptation didn't cause the sin. The temptation stirred the sin that was hiding within us. And maybe I didn't act on it, and maybe I wasn't living in it, but it wasn't dealt with yet. So clearly Adam and Eve had already had at least one conversation about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. When Eve ate, it doesn't say that she ate because of the recommendation of the serpent. It says she ate because she saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise. Adam and Eve ate because they wanted to. The serpent had just been the messenger that told them what they wanted to hear. We can blame the serpent, and God judged the serpent, but the truth is, Adam and Eve listened to themselves. They were listening to their flesh, to their deceitfulness of their own hearts. Haven't we all gone from person to person asking for advice until we got the advice we wanted? Haven't we all asked the question to a bunch of people until someone gave the answer we were looking for? Until finally somebody agreed with me? We could go around the room and I say, well, what do you think about this? And if you disagree and you disagree, I'm just going to keep going. And the second I find someone that agrees with me, I'm going to say, I knew it. I knew I was right about this. That's all that happened with Adam and Eve. We make it like they had somehow been deceived, but the reality is their hearts were hungry for something that God had not offered them. In fact, for something that God had said they couldn't have on their own. Who are we listening to? See, there's always going to be a voice that tells us what we want to hear, because we'll look for it. There's always going to be a voice that stirs up the confusion, the hurt, the doubt, the anger, and the self-pity that we have gotten used to living in. There's always going to be a voice that agrees with us when we are wrong, that goads us to do, say, and believe what we think will bring the immediate response we're looking for, that will make sense to us in that moment. But does that voice, whether it comes from the culture, from the world, from a friend, or even from our own hearts, does that voice come from anyone that can compare to the Son of God? Right, that again, going back to verse 1 of the beginning of the letter. Remember who we're talking about, and remember who's been speaking to you, and now weigh all the other voices to him. When you have heard from the Son of God, why does anybody else's voice matter any longer? And not that they're just dismissed, but they have to be compared, right? If Jesus is the Son of God, we must pay much closer attention to what we have heard from him and what we have heard of him.